Hey YouTubers, this is not my normal video, hence it's on my second channel. This is a video about a Hustler Super Z with a Kohler on it. The engine was bad. For the customer, we're talking about whether we're going to replace the motor, just do a swap with a new motor, or rebuild the existing one, which for anybody that works on these knows it's always better to rebuild what you got than to buy something else. If you're buying used, you don't know what kind of problems you're getting into with other people, what they sold you. And if you're buying new, you're going to spend a lot of money just to make it new when there's something that can be salvaged out of the old. It is cold today here in Florida and a bit rainy. But anyway, there's Frankenstein's monster. It's a twin, as you can see. And what I did yesterday was I pulled both heads. This is the head that's off at the moment. I didn't put it back on. I pulled the other side. I needed to check them both. We thought maybe we had a blown head. That is sort of the case. I noticed when I took that head off, you can turn the flywheel and you still get compression. You're supposed to have some compression because each side is sealed. So one side will hold compression and the other won't. And what I suspected was that we blew one side. Well, the head gaskets were good on both sides. However, I don't know if this will pick up on camera, but when I move these pistons back and forth, side to side, I have a little bit of movement. There's a lot of burn inside. There's oil in there it's not supposed to be. So that tells me that we do have a leak problem. And when I put that side back on and I took this side back off, the compression didn't change. It went, well, it did change. It went to almost zero. And when I pulled this side, the bolts broke. And what that tells me is that this side heated up. The steel bolts inside of the aluminum expanded and contracted to the point where they pretty much got melted inside. So while everything else on the motor came apart without an issue, when it came down to taking this head off, which is the one that I know is bad, the bolts busted. So what we have here is, it's doable, it's rebuildable, obviously, but instead of just replacing head gaskets and seals, it's got an oil leak. This is all caked up, and this whole side is just caked. Everything up underneath on the other side, it's all caked. Everything's caked. And these things are air cooled. They're aluminum heat sinks. And when they're all caked up and covered, I mean, if you take bare aluminum and you even put spray paint on it, it's not going to dissipate the heat the way it's supposed to. And it will overheat. So it looks like we overheated the right side cylinder. In order to rebuild this, I have to pull everything, clean it. I'm going to have to lap the valves. The inside here is all full of carbon. This is thick, hard carbon. Got some issues here with the valves. It's going to need a complete rebuild. What we're talking about doing is pulling the pistons, putting new rings on the pistons, pulling everything apart, cleaning it, machining it, putting it back together, and you'll be back to new. But that's going to cost about $2,000. Now I looked up motors yesterday, and it looks like we can get motors for about $2,500, depending on where we get it, what kind of shipping we're talking about. So you're still looking at, by the time we change, down here is this is your exhaust that goes to your muffler. By the time we change that, weld it if it's not a matching motor, whether you go with Kawasaki, which I prefer not to go with Kawasaki, they put a lot of plastic parts in there. If you go with a Kohler, it's going to cost a few bucks more, closer to $3,000. You're looking at about $3,500. The exhaust over here is all cracked and rusted. That's going to need to be fixed no matter what we do. When you put in a new motor, If it doesn't match, then I've got to pull all the electrical connections, chase down all the wires, and then convert the connections to the new motor. So the difference of what we're looking at to rebuild this is going to be about $2,000, and you should be back to good as new. And if you want to replace the motor, you're looking at about $3,500. So it's about 60% of the total cost to rebuild the one you got. But it's up to you. As you can see underneath of here, all the oil's gone down and caked up and filled up everything here. It's just caked completely through. Not so bad on this side over here, but this side was all caked in. I don't know if you can see that, but this whole thing is full. And that's why this heated up and probably seized up and burned up the rings just a little bit. Normally you don't get a film of oil on the inside of your sleeve. In this case, it didn't score. The piston sleeves are still in good shape. See, I have 0 compression now. This side is on and sealed. I should have some compression. I should feel that compression stroke, and I don't. But I don't see or feel, I don't know if you can get up in there, I don't know what the light's like, but there's no scratching. There's nothing wrong. Everything in here is smooth. It's just covered in oil, which means oil's getting where it's not supposed to. So we pull all these out, we clean everything, we lap the valves, we put everything back together. That's what we're looking at. So it's up to you what you want to do. To Mr. Customer, I won't mention names because this is public, but I know you'll be watching this in the next half hour or so. Either rebuild the whole thing here. It's going to cost about $2,000, and I always give top price. So it's not like I'm going to come back and go, oh, it was $2,700. I give the top side. If it costs a little less, then it costs a little less. But my bill is very rarely more than what I say it's going to be. But now we know where we're at. All in all, the Hustler's a good machine. I like it, always have. So anyway, text me and let me know. See you soon.